The Rob Lowe investigation continues with 1990s bad influence. Rob Lowe appears to have reached the same conclusion we all eventually reach. There should be more Rob Lowe. Rob Lowe sets out to terrorize another human being into becoming Rob Lowe, and as much as possible, because there is only one, he succeeded. This is the most on a mission we've seen him so far. He meets James Spader as the living embodiment of everything Rob Lowe appears to actively avoid: an impending marriage, consequences, and Rob Lowe immediately decides something must be done. Research finding. Rob Lowe believes most people's problems could be solved by behaving substantially more like Rob Lowe. Not slightly, substantially more. And so begins what is essentially a feature-length attempt to convert James Spader into a second Rob Lowe. Alarmingly, it works. In fact, one of the strangest things about the film is that you can actually watch it happen. When Michael starts manipulating people at work, he begins adopting Rob Lowe's trademark head tilt, chin out situation, that faux apologetic tone of voice that suggests he's either about to destroy you or make love to you, or both. By the middle of the film, James Spader isn't behaving more like Rob Lowe. He somehow appears to have actually acquired Rob Lowe's eyes, jawline, and general attitude towards consequences. What's fascinating is that Michael seems only capable of being Rob Lowe when Rob Lowe is not in the room. The second Rob Lowe reappears, Michael immediately becomes Michael again. It's almost as though there can only be one source of hot, dangerous energy. One original. Only Rob Lowe may riz. And Rob Lowe seems psychotically committed to proving it. The man spends a fair bit of the movie operating under fake names, fake accents, and occasionally entirely fake nationalities. Franco, Francois, Tony, Maxwell. We accept it as long as it's actually still Rob Lowe. In fact, I think this is where things begin to go wrong, because eventually Michael makes the catastrophic mistake of informing a woman that one of Rob Lowe's fake identities is fake. And Rob Lowe appears genuinely offended, not because he's been caught, because somebody has broken the game. From that point onward, the film starts feeling less like a thriller and more like a revenge story for the death of Franco. I'm not saying that's what's happening, I'm saying the timing is suspicious, because shortly afterwards, Rob Lowe begins ruining Michael's life with a level of commitment that certainly feels personal. During their wild evening out together, he robs a diner at sexy gunpoint for what appears to be a total of about $148. We have to admit we find this oddly refreshing, because after spending a fair bit of the movie wondering who Rob Lowe really is, we finally get an answer. A criminal, of course. The clues were there from the duffel bag and the trash at the very beginning and everything that followed after. Research finding. Rob Lowe does not appear interested in controlling other people. He appears invested in discovering how much Rob Lowe they can survive. Rob Lowe takes Michael to an all-night party where they consume a solid early 90s quantity of cocaine. Rob Lowe consumes more cocaine while he's driving. At this point, I honestly believe the cocaine might be medicinal. Rob Lowe, too, needs to survive the pure surge of being Rob Lowe. The cocaine almost seems to elevate him to a physical and mental capacity to be able to keep up with himself while also bringing him down to a level that the rest of us can process. This is the point where Michael begins to subscribe to the Rob Lowe premium plan. The confidence, the women, the manipulation, the crime. At one point, Rob Lowe helps Michael solve a workplace conflict by beating the hell out of the competition, which by the early 90s now, HR is finding less and less acceptable. And now Michael reaches the frightening question that no responsible research body would have pursued. What happens when there is too much Rob Lowe? When Michael finally decides he's had enough and throws Rob Lowe out of his life, Rob Lowe appears genuinely surprised. Rob Lowe is forced to retaliate the only way he knows how: big and quiet. He empties the apartment, begins dismantling Michael's life. When Michael sees Rob Lowe again at the nightclub that he apparently lives in, of course, Rob Lowe is wearing a tan blazer and a crisp white shirt. This is a guy constantly surrounded by spraying blood and who will, in fact, soon murder Michael's girlfriend with a golf club. That is a crazy level of fashion confidence. Or maybe he's starting to slip, because once Michael's brother appears at the nightclub, something changes. For perhaps the first time in the entire movie, Rob Lowe seems concerned. Up until this point, he's always appeared several moves ahead of everyone else. Now somebody has arrived that he wasn't expecting, and suddenly the experiment starts behaving unpredictably. You can almost watch him begin improvising in real time. The cool confidence is still there. The tan blazer has been swapped for a more reasonable charcoal suit, complete with what appears to be a single white pristine murdering glove. But underneath it all, this may be the first moment where we catch the manic energy, the constant calculations, the realization realization that events are no longer proceeding according to the Rob Lowe premium plan. Because when the film finally reaches its conclusion, Rob Lowe does something remarkable. He confesses, enthusiastically. Presented with the opportunity to explain himself, Rob Lowe immediately begins explaining himself. Yes, he beat Patterson. Yes, he killed Claire. Yes, he manipulated Michael. Yes, he put a gun in a guy's mouth and stole a cheeseburger. But what fascinates us is that he never seems particularly ashamed of any of it. He's almost confused. Research finding. Rob Lowe can't understand why people object to becoming more like Rob Lowe. Because from Rob Lowe's perspective, Michael wanted confidence, success. Rob Lowe simply helped. And the cost of spending your entire life doing what you're supposed to do becomes shockingly revealed, much like Rob Lowe's bare ass at the 88-minute mark. By the end of the film, Michael has become exactly what Rob Lowe wanted him to become. The problem is that nobody seems particularly happy with the results. There are still a lot of Rob Lowe movies left. The investigation continues.